Hee hee hee! First boil! Hi everyone! Welcome to Dragonfly Projects and Homestead. My name is Alex and this is my wood-fired maple syrup evaporator. This is the first official boil of the season. I'm so excited. It's working beautifully right now. If you've seen the making of this specific evaporator, you know how everything works right now. If you haven't, there are 3 videos out on how I built this. Go check them out. The system is working well. Wood is in there. I've got some wood that I split for the evaporator right around the barrel so that the heat from the barrel helps dry it out, so it's even more efficient. As I got everything fired and going, I have a nice rolling boil. My drip from my coil is working. There is a 5-gallon bucket hooked above the door that's just being fed, and we're slowly and surely boiling this amazing maple syrup. Let's go take a look at that contraction over there. This is my new and improved maple syrup collection device. Sorry, maple sap. If you can see to the left of your screen, there's a red little cart there, a little gorilla cart. It works amazing. That's what I used last year. If you check out the video from last year's maple season, that's what I was using to carry everything. But I had 2 problems. One, I was getting too much sap for what that could hold because I was using 5-gallon buckets. And 2, I had to carry it all by hand, and the snow, the mud, the tiny tires, I had to carry everything left and right. The trees I use are behind the house, so they're not crazy far, but it was a work-intensive process, and I was storing it in the 5-gallon buckets in the garage. And the thing with maple sap is you need freezing temperatures at night, and slightly above freezing during the day is your best condition, but you need to keep your sap cold as best as you can. So what I was doing, I was burying the 5-gallon buckets in the snow, but I had multiple. It was getting complicated, so I decided to bite the bullet. I just bought some used food grade 55-gallon drums. These are plastic. I think these specific one used to have cherry pits in them. Cleaned them out, and then used a pallet for the tractor, pallet forks. I used wood I had laying around. Basically, it's just something to hold in. There's some supports on the sides with some steel strapping to hold the barrels in place. And then I just used something to loosely build an enclosure so that I could pack some snow in there and have a makeshift cooler basically. So what I do now is I just drive the tractor over there. There's a nice spot that's fairly central with all the taps I have going. And I just walk around with the snowshoes and a 5-gallon food grade bucket. And I collect the sap from every tree, and then I can come back and dump it in here. So I don't have to carry it far, and I don't have to muscle it through the mud. And last year, the gorilla cart flipped at one point, so I lost about 10 gallons of sap. It is quite frustrating doing all that work and then losing it all. So hopefully this is going to be a massive improvement for me this year. Plus, with the change of schedule for this season, I am only able to boil on the weekends, so the sap has to survive 5 days. So I park this pallet on the north-facing side of the house because the sun doesn't hit it directly, so it preserves better and it stays cool longer, because maple sap looks like water, honestly, color-wise, and if it's stored for too long, it starts to turn sour, and that's when you see it start to turn a bit yellowish and it starts to smell weird. So I'm trying to keep it as cool as I can. For now, this will work, but once the temperatures start to hit above 10 degrees, I might have a hard time keeping the sap cold for the full 5 days. Plus, I won't have any more snow to use, but for now, this is working really well. 21 taps right now. I've got enough for another 30-ish. I'll probably tap 20 more trees today. See what it goes. The weather forecast is not great for the next couple of days for sap, but we are now March 18th, and for our region, there's probably another 2 weeks left to collect the sap. So we'll see if we can't double our production. What I'll do is after work every day, I'll just come out here, collect the sap, and then boil it on weekends. It's quite nice when Mother Nature does have the work for you. Some of the water in the sap froze overnight, which is the advantage of picking up in the morning. That means that the ice I remove is water I don't have to boil. And this is concentrated sap now. You can see the color is a little darker because there's more sugar content, because I've already gotten rid of a bunch of water in the form of ice. Neat. This is filled with hot water. I plumbed a faucet on the side of the house directly to the hot water line inside the house so I can have hot water outside whenever I want. Just a quick rinse. Try to remove as many contaminants as I can. I mean, this will be boiling for a good 6 hours, so not much can survive that, but it could change the taste though. And it's important to never, ever, ever put your pan empty on a fire, because you will burn your pan and destroy it. You need to have some kind of liquid in here. This is the leftover from last week's boil that I haven't had time to finish. As you can see, the color already looks a lot more like maple syrup. There are some deposits at the bottom because it's not filtered yet. As much as I can, I'll try not to dump all the deposits. It's gonna get filtered anyways. So you can see some of the deposits. When you boil it, there's like a maple sand that gets formed. Doesn't taste great. Now I can start the fire. I will add more concentrated maple sap and hook up my copper coil, and we can get started. This is concentrated water that we gathered this morning. So the one thing I have to watch the most is this drip rate, because as the pipe and the water warms up, it changes a bit. But I want this to match the evaporation rate so the level in the pan stays fairly consistent. I'm trying to keep it around 2.5 inches of depth. And if ever there's too much evaporation, I'll just open it up. And if there's not enough, I close it down, no worries. But it just makes it so that I don't have to babysit. And if I'm worried that I might be gone for maybe 20-25 minutes and I don't want it to burn, I can just open it a bit more. It'll fill up a bit more, and there'll be no risk of the pan burning and me cooking the sap. Now I have a nice fire going. It is starting to boil. All I gotta do is skim off the white foam that comes up. I have some wood on the side here using the heat from the evaporator to try and dry it. Just to try and dry the wood as much as I can. You can see some steam coming off of it because there was some snow yesterday and some rain this morning, so it is a bit soaked, so that it will burn faster, hotter, and nicer. So might as well use the byproduct of burning all the wood, which is heat, to dry it up. And then keep an eye on your water level, let it boil, and I'll see you probably in 6-7 hours. A good indicator that your wood is not as dry as you'd like it to be is the amount of smoke that's coming out of your chimney. You don't want any smoke. No smoke means a nice, good, complete burn. In this case, the white smoke means that my lumber is not as dry as I would love, and there is probably some residue and some water vapors burning at the same time. So that means my fire is not as hot as I'd like it to be, But that's the wood I have left right now. Here we are, 6 hours in, and I've just remembered I had some much drier firewood, some paper birch hiding somewhere, so I went and dug it out. And it's burning a lot hotter, getting a much nicer boil. And it's hard to see with all the steam, but we're starting to get a pretty nice maple syrup color going. Something else that is helping is the wind has picked up as opposed to this afternoon. So the dominant wind is coming from the west, blowing to the east in line with the evaporator, and that was a lucky mistake, I guess. It was not designed this way, but it just happens to work well. If I leave the door open, the wind is being brought inside the evaporator and it makes the fire burn hotter. So it is helping out right now. I'm getting a much nicer burn, a much cleaner burn. And it is making it boil a bit faster now that there is some wind picking up. All right, it's been about 8 hours now. I am ready to pour out the liquid into my container. There's about less than an inch left in the pan, so I don't want to go any lower because I don't want to burn anything. This is the tricky part. Where you don't want to burn yourself, but you don't want anything to burn in the pan. While I pour it out, and then we're going to pass it through, I believe it's called an Orlong filter. I call it a toque filter just because it looks like a hat, a toque, to filter out all the sediments and all anything that could cloud your maple syrup and make it look not pretty before the final boil on the stove. This is what we've been working for all day. This is the only downside of this evaporator. Is going to be a bit of an awkward dance. I just need to empty it enough that I can pick it up and move it off of the fire. Actually, what I'll do is close this so it doesn't burn as hot. And try to pick it up because it's not going to be as heavy. There we go. So now it's not directly into the fire anymore. Empty it out. Beautiful, so nothing burned. Happy with that. Now the only downside of this pan is the metal is kind of thin. So it's a little bit flimsy. That is its one drawback. And you can see why people call it a toque filter. So I'm just going to let the rest of the water drain out. I'll probably have to wash it. You don't want to use soap because if you use soap, it'll taste when you try to finish your stuff. All right, let's get the container from this morning that I'll be able to put on the stove. Just a bit of water left. And this is the stressful part where you pour out all your hard work. 8 hours worth of work, actually more than that because we started with some concentrate. So it was probably 12 hours of work here that I don't want to ruin. And then this filtered concentrated stuff, it's close to being maple syrup at this point. This can live in the fridge for a while. Just because it's got a high concentration of sugar. And so it won't go as bad as fast, and then I can just finish it whenever I have the chance to do it on the actual kitchen stove. So while this is draining, we can take a peek of 8 hours worth of boiling. Created all those ashes. So quite a bit of wood went through the evaporator today. Whew, still very hot. And then we'll resume tomorrow. Might have a bed of coal to work from. Here's the filter. Now, how do I know it's ready? I have a, it's not a thermometer, it's a measurement tool that measures the quantity of sugar in a liquid. And in this case, oh boy. Whew, lucky it didn't break. So I have this that measures the amount of sugar in a liquid. In this case, it can be measured in Bohm or Brie. Usually I use Brie. You want a Brie of 59 at boiling temperature. So there's two lines, there's a red line and a blue line. So at cold temperature, you want it to be 67, and at warm temperature, you want it to be at 59 Brie. So what you do is you pour some of the liquid into your holder, you put this in the liquid, and it'll float up, and you look where the liquid level meets the bar, and that's going to tell you how much sugar is in your liquid. And for the case of maple syrup, you want 59 Brie at boiling temperature. So fairly simple, just put it on the stove, boil it, and wait until this reaches the amount of desired Brie, and then you can pour it into separate containers, and you've got yourself some delicious homemade maple syrup. If you want to see the finishing stages, look back to my first video I did on the maple syrup season. I show the actual finishing process. At that time I used a thermometer. For temperature wise, I think it's around 219 Fahrenheit that you reach maple syrup, but it's a lot easier and a lot more accurate with a one of these instruments. You can also use a refractometer, which basically you put a drop of liquid in the refractometer. You look through the light, and depending on the concentration of sugar, you can tell it's a different color, and then you'll know how far along you are with the sugar content in your maple syrup. That's going to be it for the 2023 maple syrup season. Tomorrow might be one of my last boils. Tomorrow I'll be removing the taps from the trees because I just don't have the time, and there's a lot of trees producing a lot of sap. I don't want to waste anything, so I will only boil what I can boil this year, and hopefully we'll have enough for ourselves and then give some away to friends and family. If you guys like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Leave some comments down below. Hopefully you were able to have a successful sugaring season or maple syrup season. I know tomorrow I have some friends and family coming over. I'll try to finish one batch tonight so that we can do some maple taffy, which is basically further along than maple syrup. You just boil it higher, pour it on snow, and then you can pick it up with a popsicle stick and eat it. It's super delicious. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.